Let's just start off with your name. Hello?
Yes.
Can you just start off with your name?
My name is Thomasine Martin, and I used to be Thomasine Burke. I'm originally from upstate New York, but I became a Navy wife and traveled all over the world, and I've lived in 38 places in 30 years.
Might I ask when you were born?
I was born January 11th, 1939.
Okay. And what point of your life were you in during the 1960s? Were you still in school, or?
I had graduated from high school. I had gone to business school, and I was working. And then I got married in the 60s and had 2 children. And I can remember very well when Kennedy was shot because I was sewing baby clothes for your Auntie Amy, and I lived in Texas.
Okay.
And it was very interesting to me because I lived near a high school, and I thought there was all kinds of wonderful jubilation going on outside my door, and there were a bunch of kids that had gotten out of school. They had been released from school because Kennedy had been shot. But they were all explaining that they were very excited about the fact that there was a Texan in the White House. I thought this was very strange. The next morning, the newspaper in Corpus Christi, Texas, the headline was, "Kennedy is dead, we have a Texan in the White House." So I guess they were just mirroring what that particular part of the country felt at the time. Kennedy was interesting to me because I had actually ridden with him when he was in a car from Albany, New York to Syracuse, because I was dating a young man who was part of the political machine in Albany, New York, and helping to get him elected. And he was a very interesting man. He would make you feel important. He wanted to hear what you had to say. He did have a connection with the common man, even though he came from a very wealthy family. And, of course, he was the man responsible for putting his brother, Robert, in the White House as the Attorney General. And when somebody asked him why he would put his brother, who was a brand new lawyer, as the Attorney General, he said, "Well, I know where he comes from, and I know what he thinks, and I think this is a good match for me." So his brother Bobby became the Attorney General and was very, very active in the civil rights movement.
Okay. Can I ask you, how did the assassination change your outlook on America and its future?
I think the 60s were very important in as much as there was a lot of self-expression. We had a lot of the youth at the time, of course, when Vietnam happened. Some of them went to Canada, a lot of them demonstrated, and I always thought it was the precursor of Tiananmen Square. Historically, in every civilization, young people seem to make the changes, and that's what happened in the 60s. They really put forth their ideas, and they became activists in a lot of ways. Once again, the White House, part of that White House was Sergeant Shriver, who started the youth corps and senior citizens groups, but most of all, he was important for the Peace Corps. And the youth at that time really went around the world and tried to make a difference and make changes, even though a lot of them would drop out and, became, at that time, there was not just the flower children, there were also the beatnik generation. They listened to jazz, wore black, like the goth people today.
Cool. Did you witness any segregation while growing up?
It's interesting that you should say that. When I look back now, I lived in upstate New York, and in upstate New York by then, there was the minorities had become integrated into our society. There wasn't a question in my mind that there was a problem. The only thing I knew about it was what I saw, on television, which was a whole new thing. Or read in the newspaper, but where I lived, there was none of those demonstrations. There was no problems with that. There was no bathrooms that said white only. There was no, sitting at the back of the bus. That was not a big thing.
I gotcha. How did the Vietnam War affect your family?
Well, the Vietnam War was interesting to me in as much as because I got married, in the 60s. I was married to somebody from your grandfather, of course, graduated from the Naval Academy, and we had an arch of swords, and we had 8 swordsmen. And 6 of them died in Vietnam. And one of them, Eddie Davis, was captured and was one of the people that was a prisoner of war during the Vietnam crisis. And when he came back, even though he had been very good friends of ours and had spent many a Friday night in our house, drinking beer or Kool-Aid and eating, 33 cents a pound hamburger, when he came back to this country, he talked to some of the high schools, and one of them was year-round Amy's High School. And so when I knew Eddie Davis was going to talk about his experience as a prisoner of war, I went over to the school. Mm-hmm. And when he was through talking, he saw me on the way out, and he said, "I know you, right?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "But I don't remember from when or where." Wow. Even though he seemed to be together, the whole part of his life had been taken away from him as a prisoner of war.
Wow. What position were you? Were you for the war or against the war at the time?
I was very much for the war at the time because I really believed, that the domino theory was true. That, communism had taken hold of various places, and it went from Vietnam to Cambodia, and what they would do in those places is they would capture the women and children and then make the men fight with them and go on to the next village. And so, yes, I was for the war, and being married to a military person, I thought we could achieve peace at some point. Of course, your grandfather was a P-3 pilot, and he had to fly Yankee time, which was right on that Tonkin Gulf. Mm-hmm. So he had the potential of dying as well.
Yeah. So you did not participate in any of the anti-war demonstrations or anything like that, did you?
No, actually, we were in Boston, and your grandfather had come back from Vietnam and was selected to go to Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, which is a very important political training that is only extended to a few